Hello and welcome to Upper Pen. My name is Dakota, and today I'm talking with Vera Drmanovski. I hope I
Yes,
pronounced that correct.
yes, you're good.
Um, she is a graphic designer. Is that your job title?
Yes, in a nutshell. Yes.
There's a lot that goes into that, I imagine, though.
Yes, there's a lot of subcategories to that.
The thing people might know you best by right now is Emily Wilde, the series by Heather Fawcett. So thank you so much for being here, Vera.
Oh, you're most welcome. Thank you so much for inviting me. I was really pleasantly surprised.
I picked up these books because of your covers, and
Oh,
I was
nice.
like, dang.
That was the point. That was exactly what I was going for.
Well, so there's just a lot going on, and I was like, oh, well, I wonder if the book will be as interesting. And then it was, and I was very happy.
Yes, yes. We worked
Um,
really hard to make sure that the covers tell the story inside.
Yeah. So we're going to get to that in a little bit, but let's backtrack a little. And um, I guess, how did you get started in the book cover industry or just graphic design in general?
Graphic design, well, I guess that really just goes back to my childhood and constantly being around books because my parents were teachers and I have a family with librarians and they were it's a kind of a nerdy family, I guess. So I was always around books since I was a kid. And my aunt used to always get us books when we were children, like we were three and getting books for birthdays, not toys and stuff like that. So I guess books have been around me my whole life, and subconsciously that, um, just kind of is something that I've been at the covers constantly looking. Like book covers were something that I was always fascinated by. And I did always judge a book by its cover. So and then I always liked visual arts. And when I decided to pick a lane in my life, what do I want to do? I wanted to do something that will give me opportunity to work with visual arts. And graphic design seemed to be sort of the most obvious path to take. And I decided to get into college and finish graphic design and worked in the industry for about 10 years doing like graphic design for, well, it was a corporate job. So for corporate stuff, but it was more interesting than it sounds because I was actually designing for live events. So there was a lot of like interesting visuals and like motion, like animations and motion graphics and stuff like that. So I got to learn a lot and expand that graphic design field. But really, my heart was always pulling me towards books. And that was always somehow in the back of my head that that's what I was meant to do. Like, I love visual arts in general, but I've been always obsessing about books. And I started in like later on in my career, I discovered lettering and designing letters, which gave me this real passion for that field of work within the graphic design. And that was perfect for book covers because each book has a title. And I always thought that titles are probably like a vocalist in a song. For me, titles of the book are, the vocalist in the song. Like they're the main character on the book cover, and they deserve more than just the generic font. So I started like really integrating lettering within the art. And down the road, when I decided to leave my day job, that was the path I've chosen, and I wanted to really get into the publishing industry. So how did I get, did you ask me how did I get it there, or you're
Yeah.
going to ask me how did I get there?
No, it was how you got there. So that's beautiful though. It's
Yeah.
funny that you had a corporate job before this.
Well, yes, it is. Like with graphic design, a lot of graphic designs are like in corporate world. Even with ad agencies, they're like, I don't know if you watched Mad Men, but yes, they're quite corporate. And a lot of graphic designers tend to not like them that much. They're not as creative as one would think. But I was lucky, mine kind of was creative.
I work at a public broadcast station, and our graphic designer is stuck in the mold that they created in the 70s, and she feels so stifled. And so that's
Yeah.
what I think of when I think of graphic designers.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
um, so can you tell me what letter forms are? Because that's a big part of what you do specifically.
Yes. So letter forms are really the forms of letters. Like it is exactly what it says. So when I'm working on books and I'm working on titles, I actually draw all those letters from scratch. I decide how one letter is going to look and what is going to be the form of that letter. So the titles that you see on Emily Wilde, including the name of Heather Fawcett, including that novel by, like everything is custom designed, and you can't find that font. It's not a font. It is exactly just specifically designed for that series. So that's what letter forms are, really.
Do they get trademarked or anything? Like, is that owned by, I don't remember who owns those books, but like, do they belong to that publishing house now then?
The artwork belongs to me.
Oh,
I am the
okay.
copy. Yes, I own the copyrights to the artwork. And if anybody wants to license, so for example, Penguin published that. Del Rey under Penguin
Yeah.
has published those books. So they have purchased the license to use my artwork. But if any other publisher, for example, around the world, because that series has been published in many languages, so each of those publishers had to purchase the artwork from me in able to use it, to be able to use it. Yeah,
Huh. I didn't realize you got to keep the copyright. That's like really awesome.
it is. It is. It is. That's
Um,
one of the things that I was surprised too when publishers from, I believe Germany was the first one that contacted me when I did the series. And I've never done that before. I've never had a series that went worldwide. And I contacted the art director from Penguin. I'm like, am I allowed to do this? And she's like, yes, you own the rights. That's your artwork. I'm like, yes.
so
Yeah.
I don't, that just, now I'm curious, like if everybody owns the artwork for all cover art or if it's like case by case. That's interesting.
I think they should.
Yeah, but sometimes authors don't own like the audio rights of their books or things like that. Like, um, so yeah.
I don't know how that works, like with the audiobooks. That I'm not familiar. I just know how it works for the artwork. For example, if Emily Wilde was also published in audio form, and they also purchased rights. Penguin purchased the rights separately for the audiobook, and they also purchased the rights separately for paperback.
Okay.
So everything is like separate. Like, yeah, they have to purchase the license. Yeah,
That's that's cool. Does that mean though
yeah.
that you have to run your own business basically?
Yes, I do run my own business. Yeah.
Is it more than doing like these book covers? Because you had quite a bit on your website of
Yes.
like um, beautiful like designs and letterwork and what else do you do, I guess?
I used to do all kinds of projects when I was starting my practice because I was trying to get into the publishing world, of course, and that was the ultimate goal. But until you get there, you kind of like do what you can, to survive, to keep the head above the water. So basically, these days I have been solely focused on the publishing world, meaning book covers, but I also work quite a bit with the subscription monthly box companies. Have you heard of those? Like,
Yeah, like
yes,
Fairy Loot or Owl
yes,
Crate.
like
Yeah.
Fairy Loot, Fake Rate, Owl Crate, the
Yeah.
Bookish Box. There's a lot of them. So I have been working a lot with them where I get to design products, whether it's like a blanket or a mug or all kinds of. But the cool thing about it is because it's all around books. So it's quotes from books and it's all like that's why they're called the bookish items, right? So it's for collectors who love books. So even there, I have kind of narrowed down what I do, and it's again around my love for books and literature in general.
Do you read the books before you start creating, or do you kind of get an idea and then dive in?
Both. Like
Okay.
for Emily Wilde series, I've had enough time, and they've sent me the preliminary manuscripts to read, which I loved. And because it gives me more insight into the story and it gives me more opportunity to come up with my own ideas for the covers. Where sometimes I don't get a chance to because the deadlines are pretty
Oh, yeah.
short, or they just don't supply the manuscript, but they give me the brief. In that case, if it's a book that never has been published before, then I have to rely on what the brief says, and I can't be much of a art director. I'm just kind of like a designer working with the facts and the material that I have. But if it's, let's say, an edition of a book that's been previously published, then I would, if I don't have time to read the whole book, I would read as much as I can. And then I would also get into some research to get the feel for the story before I put pen to paper. So that part is really actually important. And it's great if I can get the time and the book to read.
I imagine it's just not possible for every book
Yeah,
though, especially
no,
if
it's
you're
not.
doing multiple projects at once. So,
Exactly, exactly. Sometimes per month I have 4 or 5 books. Like there's no way I can read them all.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that would be tough. What do the briefs kind of say to give you a clue? Like, do they just, this is a fantasy
Yes.
about, okay.
They give me sort of like who the audience is, what is the synopsis of the story. They kind of give me the characters, some main motifs of the story. For example, they would tell me it's like really important to have, I don't know, a door or a cup or a fox or whatever. They would just give me these like really notable motifs, and they would give me a list so I don't have to use them all. But they basically tell me what do they want. They give me some references of my work, like what they're looking for visually. I always ask for those because I need to know what the art director has in mind. And then I work with that. Then I work with concepts and we talk it through. Sometimes there are changes, sometimes they're happy with it, but overall, it's a team effort.
It's got to be frustrating though if you're like, I really like this one thing, and they're like, you got to get rid of it.
Yes. And that happens. Oh, I shouldn't say all the time, but quite a bit. Yeah, it happens.
Um, how often do you ever talk with like the writer or anything, or is it usually just the art team?
Usually the art team, but thanks to internet and thanks to beautiful people out there, I do get to connect with authors quite a bit, like on the side, and some of them are really nice and they approachable, and they tell me if you have any questions, please do ask and stuff like that. So that's kind of wonderful, and I really love that. But basically, the art team is the one that has the final say in everything.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you work with non-traditionally published books as well, or is it primarily the big five companies?
Uh, Sometimes I work directly with authors, so it's not just the company. So I work within the authors
Mhm.
separately. I have basically, I think maybe last year was the first time that I worked with an indie author, Kaylee Taylor. And since then, I've been getting quite a few inquiries from them, and that's actually great. I like to work directly with authors because um, it's just easier. I talk to the author, they tell me what they want, and then, we get the artwork done. But when they are working through publishers or through the box companies, then there's a lot of people who are making those decisions. And then you just kind of, sometimes I don't get what I want. Sometimes the author also doesn't get what they want. So, yeah.
That's
But
what special editions are for, right?
yes, exactly. Yeah. And I
Um,
love I love working with like on special editions particularly because they usually are more um, artsy and also have these special printing techniques and stenciled edges, and they're just a little bit more exclusive.
they're they're beautiful too. Like I've loved books since I can remember, but like those special editions, I pay a lot of money for special editions.
I know.
So,
I can
um,
imagine. I see you have quite a bit of books there.
well, yeah, it comes with the territory though.
Yeah, I guess. Yep.
Um, so how do you start formulating an idea for a cover or for a project? Do you just start with the title and work out, or is it like big picture?
It's a big picture because when I design the covers, I really tend to think of the whole cover as one thing, like, and title is a part of it. So I don't, and I've seen like stuff being approached, covers are being design of the covers are being approached from different angles, and sometimes they work with illustration that slap just the title on top of it. I don't like that because I think the title needs to be a part of it. And So basically, when I get the project inquiry, I after the all the research I've done and sort of got the idea how what I want to do on the cover, then I started designing a whole thing as one. So the title, uh, I guess I would first position the title
Mhm.
because that is going to be the main and focal point, and then I would work around the rest of the illustration around it. To see, where things could be filled up, like if I need to just how I can, with the illustration and the decorative elements on the cover, how I can basically enhance the beauty of the title and the cover overall. So it is a bit of a lengthy process, but it's fun, and for me that's just all in one kind of a thing.
Okay. How
Yeah.
long does it usually take you from being approached to complete cover?
Uh, Without a rush, I would
Yeah,
say it's minimum 3 weeks minimum,
that's still pretty
but
fast.
it is pretty fast. I used to need more time, but now I'm kind of getting faster with it. And also I have streamlined my process more. Like the more I work, the more that process gets streamlined, and I have a like process in place, so it's easier and faster. However, some covers are more elaborate and just take more time than others. Some are a little bit more simpler, so it depends on the design itself as well. But minimum, I would say 3 weeks if we don't have to rush it. But I've done covers for less time with a rush fee.
There better be a fee there.
Exactly. Yes.
Uh, So, um, kind of backtracking a little, is there a style of art that you fit into? Because these are so beautiful, like works of art, and they're so, I almost want to say maximalist, but they're really not. And so I can't figure out how to place you.
Yes. That is actually a cool thing that you said, because I do see myself as a maximalist, but I've also uh, kind of found a way to, because when I started, and even back in school, I used to be told all the time by professors, take out stuff, take out stuff. They were always telling me you tend to put too much. And because of my love for maximalism, and when I see, we call that in graphic design white space. When I see a white space, I tend to want to fill it up. But over the years with experience, I have found a way to I guess get that balance between having quite a bit on the cover or on my other artwork, like on the posters that I'm doing, the like the quotes from books and stuff like that. Like I tend to put a lot, but I found a way to organize it better so it doesn't overwhelm the viewer. So, and my secret weapon there is symmetry. I use a lot of symmetry to organize the chaos. That's how I call it. Organized chaos.
I love the organized chaos, though. It's like everything I've ever loved about classic literature books with these like kind of pillars framing it and like a nice arch, usually beautiful lettering. So,
Yes.
um, what other types of services do you do? So you mentioned the book boxes and then the book covers. Is there anything else?
Recently I have also expanded to book interiors. So, like illustrations for chapters, chapter design. I also do like book layouts in case somebody needs, like, especially in the authors when I'm working with them, like I do the pages for them, and then we also do some a little bit more elaborate work for the chapters or the tipping page if they wanna like sign their books, so stuff like that. So it's basically, I think, one stop shop. Like if you want to look at it, for the book needs, anything you need from a book cover all the way to the interior design. So everything there. And then I, as I mentioned, I work with anything that is book related these days, like any kind of like products. If bookish companies need, I've done anything from pendants on the for the necklaces to pillows, t-shirts, whatever. But the subject is books.
Is
So
it
yeah.
strange jumping between like a two-dimensional object, I guess, or like artwork to like a necklace, which is very much three-dimensional and has a physical weight to it?
There's really, it's very the same, because you just do the artwork, and then the companies basically, you need to provide them with, the only thing is you need to provide them with a vector file, so there's no raster, it's all like flat file, and then they would make and engrave it or whatever onto the pendant, or when you're doing some, I don't know, some kind of like whatever there's the engraving that
Yeah.
needs to be done, it's just vector. But also you have to do vector if you're going to do a foiling on the cover. So anything that needs special treatment, that's going to be either a spot gloss or a foil, you need to provide vector files, because you want the edges as clean as possible, so that when they apply those special techniques, that the edges don't look rough and everything gets messy. So you need to make sure that you give them the clean file and one layer.
You are much more of a virtuoso than I was imagining.
Thank
I
you.
can't imagine having to like deal with engraving and spot gloss and all of these things.
I think it just sounds more overwhelming than it actually is.
I'll take your word for it. I do think quite a few of the authors that I've spoken to in the past, though, would have benefited from talking with someone like you, um, especially like indie authors, when it is so important to have a good cover because you just get lost in the mix. Um,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
I'm glad there's people out there like you.
Well, yes. And if you go to Kindle publishing, direct publishing, and they say hire a professional. Yes, even though you can do the cover in Canva, it's really important to, in my opinion, to invest in covers because that is what's going to that's what attracts people. Like
Yeah,
whether we like it or not, that's just what it is. That's what's going to grab the attention.
that
Yeah.
is very true. I will buy one version of a book over another because I like the cover better. So,
Yes. I do the same thing. I do the same thing with beverages. when when I go into the store and I want to buy a bottle of wine, I'm just gonna buy the one that has a nice label.
it's usually the one that I've not seen before, or like right now we have a lot of craft beers around us that are like space themed, and there's always like a lot going on, and I'm like, yeah, that sounds fun. They're never
Yep.
great, but
I know. I know. But yeah. Hopefully
um
it's different with books.
yeah. Yeah, I pretty
Yeah.
much always like the books I pick up.
Yeah. Yeah. The cover kind of tells the story. It really does. Or
At
it
least
should.
it should, yeah.
Yes.
Have you ran into other people reaching out for like help getting started in graphic design for books specifically?
Yes. I am because I had a coach when I started my business. I hired a business coach because I thought it's as an artist, it's not enough to run your own business. It's not enough just to be talented. It is about figuring out your niche, figuring out your target markets, figuring out your marketing strategies, your business strategies, and it all just sounded very, very overwhelming. And through that, I have through my coach. Once I have established myself, I have been getting quite a few people interested in getting into the industry, and then we organized from time to time, maybe every 3 months, like a webinar workshop type of a thing together, so that we can share as much as information. And I usually also partner with other book illustrators, so we share different stories. I guess everybody has a path of their own, how they got into the industry and what works for them, what doesn't, and just multiple opinions, I guess.
I think you need a lot of opinions though, especially not to get stale.
Yes.
Um, so,
Yeah.
um, if there were an author out there listening right now, how would they go about getting a hold of you or seeing if you're even available?
Just email me. Like the best thing is just go onto my website and just email me or fill out the form. I have a form on the contact me page, so quite a few of them just contact me there through that. I get a request and I would respond right away. Usually, uh, let's say 24 hours minimum, maximum actually. You would get a response from me, and we can work it out. The deadlines and stuff like that. I will try my best to see if I can accommodate. But yeah,
Is the pricing based on the amount of work that goes into it or like,
yes,
okay.
yes. So I when somebody contacts me before I give the price and before we go into the whole um, like budget, I ask a lot of questions about what they want, what are their expectations, what kind of book cover they need, where is that book cover going to be published. how long do they need the license for? Because they're also licensing art from me. So basically, as I say, like there's always that confusion between a license and usage. So
Hmm.
license, it would be exclusive. Let's put it that way, because I will never use the art that I create for their books. I will never use for anything else, in whole or in part. So the license for book covers is always exclusive. However, the usage can have a duration. For how long can you use that art for? And then you have to renew the license should you decide to continue to use it. Because some people may, after 5 years, decide, oh, I'm not going to be selling this book anymore. I don't need this artwork. And then they won't, but somebody will, and then they have to extend the license. So that it would depend on that. It would also depend where that book will be sold. Like, is it worldwide or is it only in North America or stuff like that? So all those things impact the pricing. And so we would go into all these details before I would provide options. And I always provide more than one option when it comes to pricing, because I want people to have options to see what works best for them and for their needs.
Do you have like mock-ups of little things that they can like see or like get an idea of? I feel like a lot of authors go into this kind of blind, and so they
Yeah.
don't know what they want.
True that. Yes. So I usually ask again before we go into pricing. I usually ask them to go into my portfolio and
Oh, okay.
just look at stuff that I'm doing and see if the type of artwork that I'm doing is right for them and that is something that they want. And if it is the right fit, then to provide me at least a few examples so that I can have a vision of what they are envisioning. And even if they don't have a fully on, um, like what happened is, like, I worked with one author who didn't quite know what to do, but they just knew that they love what I do, love my work, and they wanted me to do it, but I had absolutely no idea what they wanted on their cover. So we hopped on a Zoom call, like you and I right now, and we talked it out. We just talked about the book. We talked about the story. We talked about, even though I haven't read the book, but they told me the story sort of, and then I gave them a few ideas as to what we can do, what would be a cool thing, what would separate their book from the rest of the books in that genre. Because you also, when you're looking at or deciding the artwork for that particular book, you want to look at the what kind of like books are in that genre and what kind of book covers are being created for that genre. But you also want to make it different in some way, not completely different that it's completely off, but in some ways that is going to stand out. And also, I always say it's very, very important that spine to be designed properly, because that is the first thing on a shelf that people will pick up.
I love that you mentioned that because I feel like that is easily overlooked by some folks.
Yeah.
It's like an afterthought or something. And these books, the design is just very much similar on the edge. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I never feel like
Yes.
I'm missing the artwork from the
Yes.
cover.
Yes. Yes. A lot of people, and you're right, a lot of books have. Actually, when I was going to buy the Emily Wilde series for the first time, I had something in the bookstore, where that I designed. So I'm like, it's my first book, on the shelf. So I'm gonna go. And I kind of started paying attention to the rest of the books around it. And I kind of noticed that my book, maybe it's because I'm using the custom font, not font, the custom lettering, and that lettering is also on the spine. And I also made that little, like, because I love patterns, so I
Yeah.
designed that little pattern there just to put that story. And I'm like, I've noticed that it's quite different, and then I realized how much important the spine design really is.
Yeah. I I never really noticed it until probably Emily Wilde, where I was like, oh, it's not just a wraparound of the same thing. It is its own little piece of art.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Um, is there anything you wish people would know before trying to approach you?
Just know that I'm not using fonts. That's something I always kind of say. I don't use fonts. So yes, when I design your book, you will have an absolutely original piece of artwork from the title to everything, to the spine, to the back cover, and even if you want interior design. So everything is going to be specifically for you and not for anybody else, and it's going to be completely unique.
Okay. Do you do the lettering by hand first, or do you do it all on like electronically?
No, it's first by hand. So I have like stages of how that goes. It goes first with like a really, really rough scribble in my sketchbook. And then once I kind of have the placement and I know the composition I want to look, then I kind of refine it a little bit also in my sketchbook. Not going into too many details, but having a little bit more clear idea of what kind of letter forms I want to use. And I love to just doodle, so to speak, because I like to just doodle fast because I make mistakes when I do that. And then sometimes those mistakes end up being interesting shapes that, I get some kind of like, oh, could be a cool, I don't know, a serif on a font, or this would look cool as like this little extension on this particular letter, or stuff like that. And then I would go into iPad and sketch out the clean version of the concept and the letters that I would present later on to my clients.
Do you do most of the later work on an iPad then? Like that's the best tool that you
I use iPad quite a bit,
yeah.
and especially putting that initial. I call it a line art because I keep the
Yeah.
line art in my artwork. Everything is sort of outlined, and so that is iPad and Procreate on iPad is the best tool for that because it's just easy and it's mobile. And Procreate has a very very cool like stroke control and stuff like that that makes drawing easier. But then when it comes to coloring and stuff like that, I tend to take that over onto Photoshop because, or lately actually, Clip Studio Art, which is another program for drawing, because it's just because my work is so has so many details, and then in Procreate and on iPad, I sort of get a problem with layers. I don't have enough space, layers. It's telling me maximum layers reached. So, and then I tend to just finish everything off in Photoshop or in Clip Studio Paint, which is kind of cool program that I'm just sort of learning. Um, and um, and if I have to do lettering, I tend to clean up my lettering in Illustrator, which is another Adobe program.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I use from beginning to the end, it's kind of like five programs. If I'm going to do the print layout, then I would also use either Photoshop or InDesign. So it's a mishmash of a lot of programs.
That's a lot of subscriptions to have.
Yes,
Um,
it is.
yeah. Is there anywhere that people can go other than to a bookstore to buy your art right now?
I don't sell like apart from books, like I don't really sell artwork. I used to, but then it took time to update my store and stuff like that. And also, I kind of like strayed away from typical posters and stuff like that I can sell, and I kind of more focus on creating beautiful art with quotes that I love that I need to get a license for it to be able to sell. So I'm just not doing that because I don't have time and then stuff like that. So I'm like, it's more for me and for people to enjoy. But yeah, just right now, currently, you can only purchase books that are either in the bookstores or on Amazon or from those book box companies that have subscription. And sometimes they sell the special edition separately. So you can buy on their site. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for chatting with me. It's been
Oh,
very
you're
enlightening.
welcome. Thank you so much for having me. Yes, it's I'm glad to share, and I'm hoping I can help someone, especially the authors who are thinking of how would they go about getting the cover for their book. So, yeah, we're here to help.
Perfect.
Yes,
If anybody out there hasn't read Emily Wilde, I suggest picking it up. Honestly, it looks beautiful on your bookshelf, but the story's great too, so go
I
get
agree.
it.
Yes, I absolutely agree.
Thank you, everybody, and have a beautiful night.
Thank you. Bye.